I'll just go on to talk about what we're doing at A-EON in the last year. You may remember that when I spoke to you a year ago, I hadn't received my X1000. I was one of the last ones to receive it. I actually received my machine in November last year, and for the last 9, 10 months, I've been having a lot of fun. I've actually got to like Linux, which is a bit strange for me, and I've been doing a lot of work on the Linux installs. But for me, the Amiga 1 X1000 is all about AmigaOS 4. So without much ado, I'll just go on and talk about what we've been doing for the last year. First contact. We announced last year at Amiwest that we were releasing a first contact production run. That was extremely successful. All the units were sold out within 2 days, I think. Or the orders were completed within 2 days. Deliveries took a lot longer, as you all found out. And so we decided to make another production run. We're on our last production run now, and hopefully those units by the end of this year. The funding of A-EON, we've managed to get OS 4.1 drivers for the latest Radeon HD graphics cards. That's the Southern Island chipset Radeon HD 7000 series. So we now support cards in the 4000, 5000, 6000, 7000 series. And the current installation of OS 4 is actually ahead of the Linux installation. Linux will only go up to, at the moment, HD 6570 card. So it does 4.5 up to 6570. And our Linux gurus are working on that. But I'm really pleased that just recently we released the Southern Islands, the chips, the Radeon HD chip drivers for the Southern Islands chipset. That's a major, I'm surprised this has almost passed us by. This is a major achievement for OS 4. And if you don't realize that, then you shouldn't be here. Obviously we played around with dual graphics card support, and on the A-EON website, those who've got an X1000 can download the instructions for that. It's very simple, and it's applicable to anyone that can run 2 graphics cards with AmigaOS, not just the X1000. There's a lot of work on Xena. Well, I say we. Lyle Hazelwood, who's here today, the mighty Xena warrior over there. And Lyle will be hopefully demonstrating his Xorro board this afternoon and his Xorro project. So I'm led to believe that Matthew will also have Xorro cards in stock within a month, okay? So it's taking this time to come, but there'll be Xorro cards in stock, and we've got our first Xorro project through Lyle, and we've got another few beta testers and developers who want to start their own Xorro projects. So I'm pleased to see that coming together. We've engaged the Freedens to produce Warp3D drivers for Radeon HD cards. I hope to have them ready for this show. Unfortunately, as always, it always takes a little bit longer, but within a very short period of time. 2 more weeks? 2 more weeks. We will have Warp3D drivers for the Radeon HD cards, so anyone with a Radeon HD card and the latest Radeon drivers and Warp3D drivers will be able to run 3D on AmigaOS 4. LibreOffice. We're also funding a project for Thomas Frieden to port LibreOffice to OS 4. This is underway now. I got an email from him yesterday to say he's now sorted out all the dependencies, which was the big part of the project. This is a long-term project. It won't happen overnight, but he's made, in the month he's been working on it, he's made excellent progress. So I'm really pleased that I decided to do this. This will be obviously open. We will sell this product as an A-EON product, obviously on a disc, and we'll probably lump it with some other programs. This Rift virtual reality headset project, and I've secured 3 developer headset kits who are going to Hans de Ruyter, Thomas Frieden, and Hans Jörg Frieden, and we're going to produce drivers for OS 4. So I hope you realise that this is all designed to get us not just the hardware, but we need to get the software as well. One of the big weaknesses with OS 4, Morph OS, and Aros. Darren's become our kernel guru, and we're already almost up to the latest kernel. The kernel's changed as quickly as people change their underpants. So I was really pleased that we're up to 3.55 already. We run all the latest PowerPC supported distros, not all, but most of them, up to the latest versions almost. 7 distributions are supported at the moment. Actually, Wheezy is turning out to be the most fastest and most reliable, as Debian Wheezy is about to approach release status under the Debian community anyway. And but they all run to a lesser or better degree. The only one that I think is really beta is the Dora 7, I think. My USB flash drive. This means it almost gives you plug-and-play Linux installation. You just plug in the flash drive, boot it up, and you're into Linux. You don't have to touch your OS 4 installation at all. You don't have to install it at all. It's not that fast on the flash drive. I've installed mine to a USB hard drive, which runs almost a hard drive speed and plays very nicely. And I'll have one hooked up today if anyone wants to take a look at it. PowerPC's dead, yeah? You all saw that. Matthew and I met with Varus earlier in the year, and this is a graveyard near Varus, a famous graveyard apparently, near Varus' office. And we were all supposed to look really sad. Matthew couldn't stop smiling, look at it. And my hair is orange because of the sun. Ellie, it's the sun. Right. There are lots and lots of companies developing PowerPC products. Obviously, not all, very few of them for the desktop market, if any. The big ones, I mean, IBM is obviously one of the leading PowerPC developers, and LD here works for IBM on the, I won't say which area, he can say himself later. Freescale, AMC, and then lots of little companies that are building PowerPC products. What we're seeing now is the next generation PowerPC chips coming in, the next generation. And I think the future for PowerPC and desktop is bright, but the future is multi-core. And it's very important for OS 4, more for OS and Aros if it's on, wants to remain on PowerPC, then there needs to be multi-core support. And I think the big change we're going to see in the next year or so is the support for multi-core.
Lyle Hazelwood, I've had the pleasure of setting up some of the first Xena tools and paving the road for all of us to go play with this new wonderful chip. And I'm here to do a bit of a presentation, what Xena can do for you, the Warrior Princess. I had some cheat sheet here. Hard. So what is the Xena chip? The Xena chip is actually an Xmos device that has some very unique processing power. I've had the pleasure to work with a number of different larger and smaller processors, and the Xena works in a way that's different from any I've seen before. We can touch on that just a little bit. It is a multi-threaded chip. The chip we have in the X1000 is the L2, which offers 2 cores, a total of 16 independent threads. What I find astounding is each of these threads is clocked at 100 megahertz. Extremely fast processor. It seems to be best designed for stream-oriented work. Let's see. Where shall we go from here? The chip that's built in on the X1000 board has about 1/3 of its connections pre-wired back to the processor in the X1000. And we have what's called the local bus interface that allows us to interact with the Xena chip directly from OS 4. The other 2/3 of the leads coming off the Xena chip are brought out to a special slot in the X1000, which is named Xorro, with an X. So by picking up a Xorro card, we basically get a blank prototyping card that gives us access to all of the unattached wires in the Xena chip. What does the Xorro board do? All it does is provide us a platform on which we can attach whatever we'd like. I'll be showing a few projects today. I have one of the first Xorro boards here in slot, and what we've done so far is including, we've added a serial port, and I've accessed the code to access it. We've added an SD card so that we can actually save and load files. All of the people in the Xmos community who play with these chips all have one thing in common. In order to talk to the chip, in order to interact with the chip, they have to go out and buy a little JTAG adapter card that plugs into their USB port, plugs into their Xena project, and allows them to program and interact with the chip. We've got something special built in. We've got a JTAG port right in here in the system. We can just run command line tools from OS4. We can program the Xena chip. We can read debug information back from the chip. We can have a party without any of these excess adapters. It all comes built in. What is this project for? I tried to set a conservative first project to get my feet wet and get the tools working. My goal for this project is kind of a toy for developers, is to be able to capture debug from the serial port of the X1000 without a second computer. Any of the developers out here know if you want to do debug work, it comes out through the serial port. What we do now is to take a second computer, attach the serial ports together, and set the second computer on capture. Having a complete second computer around just for debug information, while it works great, could be a little bit of a nuisance. My goal with the Xorro card and just the serial port and an SD card added on, we should be able to capture the debug information, store it locally to an SD card. When the machine crashes, all the neat information that developers need to know what happened can be stored on the SD card. You can then reboot the computer, bring it up fresh, and ask Xena, hey, how many of those debug files do you have on hand? Why don't you send me the last one before we shut down? And Xena will pipe this file right up through the local bus, magically appears in your RAM disk. You've got a copy of your last, or 2 boots ago, or 3 boots ago. We're still working out the details on how many we're going to hold. The SD card I have in now holds a 2 gig SD card. How much debug log, Steve, do you think you can hold in 2 gigabytes? Good. Good.
Lyle Hazelwood again. Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. Unfortunately, I've got them in another order. I'd like to show you a new application first. We've had very few new applications in music for quite a while. We showed some excellent sequencing stuff earlier. All of the music stuff on the Amiga is wonderful. I can't get enough music. I can't get enough MIDI. Those who know me know I maintain CamD library. I had something to do with the USB drivers for MIDI. It's my enthusiasm. It's my little corner of the Amiga world, and it's where I play. One of the programs that I miss the most that does not run on OS4, to my knowledge, or I've tried, is a program from Electronic Arts. It was called Deluxe Music. Deluxe Music was phenomenal. What set it apart from the other sequencer programs is that Deluxe Music is notation-based. Instead of being a sequencer that accurately records and plays back exactly what you've played, Deluxe Music forced you to work in terms of notes on a staff, and it forces you to learn a little bit about musical notation. I miss that. I have run Deluxe Music on my X1000. I've tried to bring it up. You can open it, you can see that, you can even convert files in and out of it. But anytime you press play, it locks up solid. Perhaps someone knows how to fix that. Being better at writing software than adjusting programs, I decided to try something new. So I've been working on a new program called Score. I'm very excited about where this can go. Score is not finished yet. I'll be showing you a partially completed program, such is life. But let me show you a little bit about what Score is like. When Score opens, unlike Deluxe Music, Score uses standard MIDI files. I wanted to keep everything cross-compatible and easy to work with. The downside to that is that MIDI files don't force you to keep music properly notated. So if you load a song that was played very accurately, it'll look beautiful when it's notated in Score. If you load a file that has notes thrown and slurred all over the place, that's exactly what it'll look like in sheet music form. But let me get a quick look here. I'll choose a short little piece here. When the song is loaded, if it's not already broken out in separate tracks, Score will do so. And we should be able to play this and hear a little music. But what makes Score special, as I said, is that it's notation-based. If you click on a track, we have notes on a staff. I'm using TrueType fonts here, which means that there's no jaggies. We can set any size and scale that we want and be able to see good, clear music. We also have the ability to rescale at will. Oh, I wanted that so badly. But this is the beginning of a new program. I'm going to stop this for just a moment and show you another trick or two with it before we hide it away. In addition to just playing MIDI files, Score is an editor. Like Deluxe Music, you should be able to drag and drop to grab notes and drop it on the screen. This is how we'll be able, I'm still working on the editor, but this is how we'll be able to add notes. Just grab a quarter note or a half note or whatever particular musical notation you need, and it'll come right up into the window. One other trick, which I did actually just work on the other day, something Deluxe Music didn't do, if you drag select a group of notes, you can transpose them just by rolling the mouse. We didn't have mouse wheels back when Deluxe Music came out, so this is an option. And you can see the sharps and flats and other accidentals, you know, are being set properly as the music goes. It's just the beginning. It's coming along nicely. I'm very excited about having something that can start, hopefully, where Deluxe Music left off and carry on a little further. Bars and Pipes was originally written by Toto Orfei and the crew at Blue Ribbon Bakery. They later became Blue Ribbon Soundworks. Bars and Pipes was a phenomenal hit back in the days of the classic. I was able to inherit the new OS4 Bars and Pipes. We're working out a few bugs. It's easier when I can see what I'm doing. But we do have Bars and Pipes OS4. So far, the tools and the music files are not backwards compatible, so we need to regenerate them as we go. Older tools and songs from the old Bars and Pipes probably won't work. Sorry about that, but when I inherited the source, it was a bit of a mixed bag, and I needed to cut and paste a few things to make it work. It works at any resolution. I've turned it down from what we had, because if you run Bars and Pipes at the full screen resolution, you get lots and lots of empty space. But it will work any way that you want. We load up a song. What makes Bars and Pipes unique, if you haven't played with it before, is that we have the pipelines coming out of each track. You can play with the music. You can modify the music without actually making any edits. If I pick up an echo tool and drop it into one of the pipelines, I will hear that echo applied to everything traveling through it. But I've made no change to the original recording. This lets you get very playful and experimenting, messing around with different tools, combining them in different ways. That's really what makes Bars and Pipes happy. We'll start with just playing and see how far we get. Something cheerful, I hope. They're actually making Cadillac commercials now with Led Zeppelin music. We can click on a track and see what's happening. Here we have bar notation, which is basically just showing a dash. The length of the dash indicates the length of the note. We also have available, I need to keep these glasses on, Wish Me Luck. This bars port was only very, very recently brought up. I haven't had a lot of testing time. So wish me luck with this. Display. No, I got the wrong window up somehow. Show. That would be it. I can ask for staff notation, and in addition to the bars on the staff, we have actual notes on a staff. Possibly not at quite the resolution that Score has, but remember, this is from the 1.3 era, you know, when this software was originally written. So we have the great editing tools. We have the ability to play the way we used to play. I always felt that Bars and Pipes was perhaps one of the most powerful music playing, music managing, music editing programs that's ever been available, at least in the MIDI world. It doesn't do sound sampling, but as far as MIDI goes, it's phenomenal in what it's available. I'd mentioned the tools. I have a few tools here in the toolbox. I have already converted up to 80 tools, different tools that can be used and will be shipped out with this program. I've also contacted Michael Reese, who wrote some extremely advanced tools for Bars and Pipes. Tools, for instance, that can be changed live while the song plays. You can embed codes in a track that will tell a transpose tool to shift, or to tell an elbow to send the music high, send the music low, move the split point, and change whatever you'd like. One major drawback with MIDI on the Amigas that has always been is that if you really want to play with MIDI, you have to have synthesizers. You got to spend a lot of money and buy a lot of gear, and I love my shiny boxes over here. However, I've been working on a program called SoftSyn. SoftSyn is a software synthesizer. It gives you this completely in software in OS 4. It is still in beta. I'll admit it sounds a little rough. Okay, it doesn't sound nearly as pretty as the Yamaha we were just listening to. However, you can use different sound fonts. We use standard sound fonts right out of Cakewalk, I believe. It's something that I've been working on as a passion, as I want to enable more people to be able to play with MIDI. I want bars and pipes to be available to everybody who has an Amiga. I want you all to be able to have the fun that I have, even if you don't have the equipment that I happen to have. So keep an eye on SoftSyn. It is on OS 4 Depot. There will be a new update coming this week, and I will continue to refine it and try to improve it to get the best possible sound quality for all of you.
I wanted this time slot so that I could do a little bit of a AmigaOS Roadmap discussion slash feature gathering session slash Q&A, whatever you want to call it. To start things off by listing a few things that are being worked on right now, but not yet released, and kind of get the ideas going, so to speak. So, we have a list, mostly from last year, but well, just bear with me. I have on here the new console, new shell. That's always a big concern for the programmers out there and users alike, right? You could say that was finished a while back, but I still see bug fixes going in, so it's always in development. We just have to stop and release it. Right? Of course, we have MESA or MESA or something, OpenGL implementation. That's running well. Multi-core support. I'm not calling it dual core support. Multi-core support. Isolated address spaces for tasks. Updated workbench. Of course, along with multi-core, you get the pluggable scheduler and the interrupt server as such. A new file system API has been implemented and is coming along. Of course, the 4 gigs of RAM support. That's another nice feature that we want to get out there sooner than later. 2 gigs isn't enough. You got a 4, right? Gallium 3D, of course, is in there. New printing subsystem. That's something else we want to work on. Better debugging support, another thing. So that's just a short list of kind of points. We're working on a new delivery system to get the software out faster.
So to be more serious about it, are you all planning on releasing these features on an incremental basis, or is it going to be like traditionally where we have a lot of these new features in one big OS release that's coming?
Yeah, actually, there's a current discussion whether we should continue on the current model, which is go major release, charge for it, and that's it, right? There's a discussion, well, maybe we can do incremental ones because it just takes too long and users are too hungry for releases, right? So they should be given the opportunity to get releases sooner.
Like a subscription model.
Yeah, like a subscription model. Question?
What about releasing a portable?
How about releasing a portable? Well, I don't currently have any additional information to share. It's coming along, but I can't say anything more than that.
Hello, I'm Jason McMullen. I'm representing Aros, which is an Amiga research operating system. And today, I'm going to give you a bit of an up-to-date of what's going on in Aros and what we've been doing and what we plan to do. It still is a AmigaOS 3.x source level compatibility, which means that you can take your AmigaOS programs, recompile the C code, and have some expectations they'll work on an alien processor like x86 or ARM or PowerPC or whatever. And by 2009, we've supported PC i386 as our primary platform. That's the Aros version 0 API, and it is supported by a number of distributions. And we also have a relatively large number of third-party applications that people have ported for Aros and run on the V0 platform. Aros V0 is our stable platform, and we have a number of distributions. We have Icarus, which aims to be a rather wide sampling of the programs available for Aros. Raspberry Pi, which I have demoing over there. That's a ARM v6. It's got VFP floating point. The original Raspberry Pi came with 256 megabytes of memory. If you buy it for the same price now, it's 512 megs. It has Ethernet, SD card interface, DVI, composite audio, USB, and it's 35 bucks. So you can get an Amiga API compliant machine for 35 bucks plus keyboard, mouse, monitor. That's not too shabby. We're currently still working on developing the native drivers. So the demonstration I have here is hosted on Linux. Linux provides simply the input interface, the video interface, and interface to the storage infrastructure. So everything else, scheduler, tasks, graphical interface, all that, Aros provides. The other platform I brought in today is the A-Cube SAM460EX, USB 1.1, Ethernet, just enough to bring up the system, develop it, work on it, refine it. And the demo you see today is a pre-release, still working on it in my hotel room, and those patches should be merged back into the main repos within the next week. And the final target is the Mike J's FPGA Arcade, which is simulating a Amiga 1000 to an Amiga 1200, depending on the configuration options you give it. It has a SD interface, DVI, serial joystick, PS2 mouse and keyboard. It's not yet in full production, but Mike tells us he's going to be making boards soon, and he's going to continue to tell us that.
To the moderated portion of tonight's evening, one of the things that has happened in the Amiga community is many people have cared deeply about seeing the Amiga be successful. That was Dave. Successful and have sat around and said, I want to do something. And they did. And some of them are Germans, and they gave us an operating system called MorphOS. Some of them were, I don't even know, American, worldly. Other Germans. More Germans who gave us something called Aros, which has changed its name. And then we had more Germans who gave us something called AmigaOS 4. AmigaOS is the official title. And then we had, where's UAE from? The emulator. Finland. The Finns didn't like the Germans getting all uppity with their versions of Amiga, so they made another one, which I think is a testament to the whatever it is that makes the Amiga interesting to some mostly rational adults 15 years later, 17, 18 after it fell, after Commodore closed. And so if you look around the room, it's interesting. We have Aros, thank you, Jason. We have MorphOS, thank you, Dave. We have Hyperion, Steve, leading that effort. We also have classic systems. There's more table space devoted to next generation machines than there are classic. We have Trevor, who steps between most of the worlds trying to figure out how to take our money and give us products to make us happy. And then, of course, the Sacramento group. What's that?
I failed.
Who are you again? And then we have the Sacramento table with the history of the Amiga in all of its glory, looking at us, actually. Kind of. So the point is that it's a vibrant, active community. As part of my preparation for this, I did some searching on Acorn and Atari. And I went to a landing page for Acorn, and it said, click here to get hardware. And there was like 6 links, and they're all dead. I have, and I should say, there's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of, I'll say, 45 people in the room. There's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 80 ARM processors. Because many of us have more than one device that fits in a pocket or a briefcase that uses the ARM processor systems, ISA. So the point is that even though the original Acorn ran on that, you don't run it there anymore, or RISC OS I should call it. But the Amiga continues, and there's been different directions. Aros is saying, let's re-implement the 3.1 API, and maybe we'll talk about a little bit of that. MorphOS says that the direction of OS4, or AmigaOS, well, there's some differences and disagreements in the technical implementation of how that happens. And so we experiment and we grow as a community. One of the challenges, though, is that resources are limited, and they get spread thin, or I should say spread, and oftentimes spread thin. And that does raise challenges for us, as we do want to see the community grow. And as was alluded to earlier, when the developers see the users bickering, they lose interest. Why am I doing this? Because these children are going to argue with each other, and what am I doing? And that's a really bad thing, because if there's one thing we know about the technology world, it moves very, very fast. There's a lot of opportunity, there's a lot of options. People do not need to spend their time with an Amiga because they have a plethora of other choices. So the hope of the panel tonight and the discussion is going to focus around these different platforms that have all come and matured, and each have some very loyal followers, each have people who are watching all of them independently, and they're all trying to pick up the torch to carry the Amiga name, or more importantly, the Amiga spirit forward, so that idea can live on. And I would like to point out, I was having a conversation with my brother, who originally got me involved in the Amiga, and he pointed out to me that systems today, the architecture of computers today looks like the architecture of an Amiga. And if you go back to 1985 and you look at system architectures, they were not built like the Amiga. You look at every single machine today, bar some embedded systems, it is built like an Amiga. It is the right way to do it, because you don't want things waiting for other things, because it has to get done fast. And it's an amazing philosophy, and as much as it's nice to see the competition using the idea started here, we really want to be seeing the competition die and use Amigas, because we're that kind of people. So without further ado, what I'd like to ask the panel to do is to just sort of introduce yourself and give me a brief overview of the platform you're representing and why, and you'll see that the reasons are going to differ. And we're going to start with Amiga Dave, and I will say he's a great guy. He is very selfless in his support of the club and of the system. So, Dave, why don't you tell us a little about yourself and a little about
David
MorphOS?
Morris. I got interested in the Amiga when I read a article, I think it was in Popular Science. It may have been right before it was released or right after it got released. And I had an opportunity to buy a used Amiga 1000 in 1987. And it was my first computer experience. I had never owned a computer before, never used one. And it really opened my eyes on how computers worked. And I grew to really appreciate how different it was from all the PCs at work, because that's when things started getting computerized where I was working in my field. And so the Amiga really lifted me above all the people in my profession, and I credit it to getting me to the top of my profession. It was because I learned how to compute on an Amiga, and it got me that much further ahead of the other guys who weren't interested in computers at the time. I'm representing MorphOS, and I am not an official representative of the MorphOS development team. I am just one of the lucky users in the United States who promotes MorphOS whenever I get a chance. Although I use all different flavors of the Amiga experience, as I like to call it, from classic systems to FPGA clones to AmigaOS 4, and I want to get more into using Aros as well. My current flavor of choice is MorphoOS.
All right, me again. Stephen Zoli. My throat's a bit gone. But let's see, I started VIC-20, Commodore 64, Amiga 1000, Amiga 3000, and then I went PPC after that. I like using my Amigas for helping me explore different avenues of software engineering and computer science, and hardware engineering a little bit as well, just on the side. And been very helpful in helping me gain lots of unemployment, because every time you put Amiga on your resume, somebody asks. So.
Did you say unemployment?
No,
Oh, employment.
Yep. They always ask. I think my manager still thinks I'm an Atari guy, but at least they ask, right? Gets them mixed up. And I'm currently serving as AmigaOS development team lead, so I can help direct, or at least nudge, the OS in a particular direction and make some decisions, get things moving.
Jason?
I'm Jason McMullen, and I'm one of, I wouldn't say the lead developers of Aros, but I'm one of the more prolific developers of Aros this past year. I remember first seeing advertisements for the Amiga back in the mid-'80s, and it got me really excited. And I got my first Amiga in 2008. I got an Amiga 1000. And started playing around with it, and eventually got to the point where I realized I needed some ROMs. And I hadn't heard about Cloanto yet, and I knew that they didn't have any legal ROM. Couldn't find any legal ROMs to use. And then I saw that, hey, look, there's this Aros distribution for the x86 that, oh, that code looks kind of close to what they had for the 68K. Surely it can't be that hard to port. And then 2 years later, here I am. But I have been very interested in AmigaOS and Aros as examples of a very cleanly designed, embedded operating system, and I think that its design has a lot to teach people that are engineering today about embedded systems, both really, really good things, and there's some bad design decisions too, but learning how they work together as a whole operating system and being able to put the whole operating system and the hardware that it's designed to run on, all that information in your head, and being able to completely understand a relatively small system, I find there's a lot of educational value in that. And that's where I stand.
Trevor?
Hello, my name's Trevor Dickinson, and I'm a Amigaholic. You should have got that last year. And I started with Commodore PETs back in 1980. Usual Commodore PETs, Commodore 64, Commodore 128. Hey, I'm loyal. My first Amiga was an Amiga 2000, and I was living in Texas at the time, and one of their bad thunderstorms blew up my Commodore 128D, came through the phone line, destroyed the lot. So with the insurance check, I put it towards a Commodore 2000, Amiga 2000. So that's how it's an act of God. That's how. That's how I became involved with Amigas, and I introduced it into the company I was working for. So I was always big box Amigas. So I was spoiled. I had 2000s, 3000s, 4000s. And it was only later on when I started to become a collector that I come to really like the Amiga 500s. That's my favorite in terms of shape of the machine. Really nice machine. But then I started collecting all Amiga flavors, and I amassed an embarrassing collection of machines. But I started, my first next generation operating system was actually MorphOS, because I installed that on one of my Amiga 4000s. It took a long, long time to install. Took me about a week. But one thing about us Amigans, we're persistent. We don't give up, and it doesn't go. And most of my machines were hung together with chewing gum string, because that's what happens with the old Amiga classics. But eventually, when I got that Morphos ambient desktop loading, it was brilliant. So that got me into next generation Amigas, and I started then with a Micro Amiga 1, and I went the whole flavors. I'm into Mac Minis with MorphOS. I'm into Mini Migs. I've got Chameleons. I've got probably every single Amiga OS flavor. Aros, Icarus Desktop, Broadway. I've tried a lot. I've even tried things that say Amiga OS, or OS 4, and the Linux. So, so for me, it's probably a madness. My wife says there's a fine line between madness and genius, but I think she knows what line I lie on. That led me to want to do something for the Amiga community actually for myself, let's be honest. I want to do it for myself. And if it benefits the Amiga community, that's great. And if everyone wants to come along for the ride, that's even better. It'd be rather sad if I was sitting in the room by myself, talking to myself. So I'm pleased you're here.
If you come to this hotel next year about this time, you will be by yourself.
So that's why I'm into Amigas.
Thank you, Trevor. Matthew, sorry.
I'm Matthew Lehman. For those of you that don't know, I'm involved in AmigaKit.com. I started using the Amiga back in 1990. It was a natural progression from the Commodore 64. And shortly after I had Amiga 500, I saw the 1200 and decided to upgrade, like many people did. And then in 2004, when the Amiga scene was tailing off and we had less retailers in the marketplace, I thought, well, let's do something about this, because my underlying passion is the classic Amiga. So we started AmigaKits.com in around that time, and at the time it was difficult because there wasn't any support for classic Amigas. It was difficult to get even spare parts and things like that. And a lot of spare parts were becoming landfill, which I thought was criminal for a classic system. They should be preserved, and a lot of people were saying, where can we get hold of all these parts, and it's been pretty successful ever since, from 2004 to the present day. We've had a big following of customers and a big loyal following customers, and we really appreciate those the customers that come back to us. I'm also involved in the next generation Amigas, but there's always a special place in the heart for the classic Amiga. Although the next generation Amigas are becoming more and more interesting as more software is coming onto them. So that's where I am so far.